Dolphins fans, what's going on? It's Ben Morgan, Fins Up Network. We've sort of hit that point where we're sort of through like the first wave or two of free agency as this part of the offseason, kind of getting into that draft prep, really seeing how things shook out in free agency. So with that today, I kind of wanted to grade, not really necessarily with a letter grade. I'd almost say like judge or review what the Dolphins have done so far in free agency. So I wanted to go just position by position. What are the moves? Not going too much in depth. We've already went in depth with a lot of the signings so far already, but just kind of go position by positions. What have the Dolphins accomplished? Do they still need to address that position in the draft? Guys that they may have lost that were maybe potentially coming back to those positions, but more so just give a review of what the Dolphins have accomplished or not accomplished so far this offseason. Before I start, I want to hear from you. How's free agency going? Give it a letter grade, give it a thought, whatever you've got in the comments. Curious to see what you got as well. But like I said, let's go position by position. And the first position being quarterback. And obviously, with bringing Tua back, with exercising the fifth-year option, you knew the Dolphins weren't going to rely on a rookie quarterback to be the backup. And you likely thought that someone's going to have to come in and challenge Skylar Thompson for that backup quarterback gig. Enter Mike White. Now, obviously, we've heard all the news. The Dolphins had a price point. They were really only willing to spend so much at quarterback. So I really think they could have done better than a guy like Mike White. But at the end of the day, the price point was there. They didn't go for Taylor Heineke. They didn't go for Gardner Minshew, as some of the reports were saying. Mike White is the guy. And at this point in time, like I said, he's got some experience. He's got some experience in the division as well. Thinks he's a pretty good fit with Mike McDaniel in this offense as well. But at the end of the day, we're praying for QB1. We're praying for that health, because any quarterback that goes down in the NFL, it's already like bad news bears. You definitely don't want to go down that road. No team wants to have to start their backup quarterback. But by going a little bit cheaper with having Mike White as likely as the quarterback two, we definitely need quarterback one to be healthy. Let's go on to the running backs. So I clumped running back and fullback here together. And as you can see by the names, Mostert, Wilson, Ahmed, Myles Gaskin, we're running it back with the 2022 unit. 2023 units looking damn similar to that of 2022. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. We saw really good work from both Wilson and Mostert. Neither Ahmed or Myles Gaskin really got the carries. But honestly, when Mostert and Wilson got the carries, their yards per attempt were pretty damn good. Both of them showed ability in the receiving game. Both of them showed the ability to break tackles. Obviously, Raheem Mostert has that breakaway speed. I don't mind this unit, but I still hope that they target running back in the draft. And the Dolphins have a second, a third, a sixth, and the seventh. And with it being a deeper class, I don't mind going this route, because what was the alternative? We heard all the rumors. Derek Cook trade rumors. Derrick Henry trade rumors, Dalvin Cook trade rumors. And obviously the Dolphins haven't ended up, they ventured down that road, but they haven't gone down that road yet per se with an actual offer, or an offer that's been accepted, at least to our knowledge. So right now we've got the unit that we had last year, and I hope that they bring in a young guy via the draft to really complement these guys, to give Ahmed, to give Gaskin kind of a run for their money when it comes to training camp as well. And then maybe you can kind of groom that guy behind Mostert and behind Wilson. Let's take a peek at the wide receivers. As you can see, we brought back River Cracraft on a one-year deal, and then also signed Braxton Berrios, formerly of the New York Jets. And now I talk about a position where the Dolphins maybe let someone walk. Well, when you sign Berrios and when you bring back Cracraft, that Cracraft is something you should try to say out loud and see how it goes for you as well. I'm sort of surprised they let Sherfield walk, but at the end of the day, roster spots are a thing. Money is a thing. Sherfield walks. And yeah, Sherfield was a good wide receiver 3. He emerged more so than a Cedric Wilson did last year. He can block. He does a lot of the dirty things. When his number was called, he answered it. End of the day, it wasn't in the stars. You lose him to the Bills. But also at the end of the day, Braxton Berrios is a pretty solid slot receiver. He's not going to blow you away. He's not the best wide receiver. Obviously, the Jets let him go and let him walk for a reason as well. But he's pretty decent in the slot, and he brings something to the table that the Dolphins really didn't have last year. And that's action in the return game. Kick return, punt return. Miami finally might have a guy that they can literally just designate to say, you're our guy. We're not platooning through people. We're not throwing in Cedric Wilson at the end of the year to call fair catch every time. We might actually have a return guy this time. Thinking about River Cracraft here, I think it's similar to last year. He's battling for one of those final wide receiver spots. And then you look at what we had. Eric Azukama, Braylon Sanders. Can one of those emerge? Can one of those guys earn a roster spot? Can they keep a roster spot? Can they earn playing time and maybe push a guy like River Cracraft to the side? We'll see, but that's the answer that we're going to have to be searching for this offseason at the position. So tight end was curious. Let's put it that way. Obviously, Mike Gesicki walks. He goes to the Patriots. 1 year, kind of what seems like a prove-it deal. You almost think like, hey, the Dolphins could have done that for that kind of money. But we went down that road. The fit wasn't there. He obviously couldn't come in and be a willing blocker the way that Mike McDaniel wanted him to be on the field as often as this offense wants its tight end to be. So you bring in a guy like Eric Saubert who can do a little bit of blocking. He's not going to blow you away with his pass catching. He's capable, but he's not going to blow you away in that aspect. So you look at the roster and you think, it's Durham Smythe, it's Tanner Connor, who's a project, Smythe, who's more of a blocker himself, Tanner Connor, who's not really a blocker, who was a former wide receiver, who has the receiving stuff, but he's raw, he's undersized and raw. And now you got Saubert as well. So it's a relatively weak unit, but I ask myself and I ask you, is that okay? Does it need to be top tier? Last year, we had one of the best pass-catching tight ends in the league, and it didn't matter. We didn't even use him for that. More often than not, we didn't use him for that. So does it need to be? So that's why my attention goes like, well, they got those three guys. They're cool with what they can bring to the table as blockers. Now, do we maybe try to find a pass catcher or the future of the position in the draft? So I would say that the Dolphins probably have their eyes on some of this year's, maybe not necessarily top tight ends, but the position group in general, definitely thinking that they are going to target that position at some point in April here with that draft. Let's go on to the offensive line, because this is probably, I would say, either the biggest position of surprise or the biggest position of disappointment. So I think so many of us wanted either a left guard or a right tackle, if not both. And we didn't really do anything to address those starting positions. It wasn't Mike McGlinchey, who got massively overpaid. I don't blame the Dolphins. I commend the Dolphins for not throwing out that kind of money. Caleb McGarry signs back with the Falcons. There's a couple big names out there as well that the Dolphins opted not to spend on. But instead, what they do, they brought back some of their own depth guys, and then you add Dan Feeney, who, in my opinion, is kind of like a Michael Dieter replacement. He can play guard. He can play center. He's a depth guy, not necessarily wanting him to start, but he's got the experience. He's position versatile. Not a bad signing. But, man, that faith that Greer and McDaniel just preach over and over and over again about Liam Eichenberg and Austin Jackson, that remains real. And I've been kind of in denial about that for the longest time. Maybe it's time we start taking their word, because they did not spend in free agency. They did not upgrade on the offensive line whatsoever. So we'll watch. We'll see what they do in the draft. But are they going to trust a rookie, especially one that's not like a first-round surefire tackle or guard in the draft? Probably not. So we might have what we have with this unit. I mean, it still remains. Maybe we see another free agent signing later. But as of right now, that faith remains in Liam Eichenberg and remains in Austin Jackson. Let's go on to the defensive side of the ball. Linebacker, a position that we knew it needed help this offseason. And quite honestly, David Long, one of the better bargains. He's got the injury concerns, and that's probably why the Dolphins got him at that bargain price. But being able to solidify that middle linebacker position with someone that's as good at tackling, has the speed, has the coverage ability of a guy like David Long, that goes a long ways. And then you look at the rest of the guys, and they're more edge rushers than anything. Oh, I'm sorry, Duke Riley's not. But Malik Reed, reuniting him with Vic Fangio, getting Andrew Van Ginkel back as well on, I believe his was a one-year deal as well. You're likely rounding out that edge position right there. Melvin Ingram, probably unlikely to be back at this point in time. You probably have your guys. You already had Phillips. You already had Chubb. You already had Ogba, and we'll see what happens with him. But now you're adding a guy like Malik Reed. You're bringing back Andrew Van Ginkel. Fangio likes these guys. Fangio legit has his guys at this position. He was rumored to be the one that said, Van Ginkel, you're flirting with the Patriots. You're flirting with the Raiders. Let's come back here. We will find a role for you here. So I'm curious to see what all that entails with the guys they have, because you know he's got a plan for Malik Reed as well. being a former Bronco, having success with him as a former Bronco. But going back kind of that middle linebacker, I thought maybe the Dolphins would add another guy that's more of like your traditional linebacker. They haven't yet. It's really been David Long. So as of right now, if I'm making a prediction, it's linebacker for the Dolphins in either round 2 or 3. And we don't have 2/3 anymore. We just have the one right now. But being that position, being Baker still here, Tyndall still here, you have Long, would not be surprised to see the Dolphins still go linebacker in the draft. Let's go to cornerback. It's the slam dunk. It's the highlight of free agency, even though it really wasn't a free agent acquisition as a trade. I'm still going to throw Jalen Ramsey in there because he, in my opinion, he turns this cornerback unit from a question mark to scary. Because that's, imagine it without him. You got Xavier Howard, who has a little bit of a injury history in past. You've got Nik Needham, who you brought back, but he's coming back from injury. You got Cater Cole, who can play boundary and slot, but still pretty young. And then you got Trill Williams, you got Elijah Campbell, you got a couple of guys, but at the end of the day, you're just like, we need another guy. You needed someone. Well, you just brought in someone that's arguably better than Xavier Howard. So now you got Ramsey, who's a clear-cut cornerback one. You got Xavier Howard, who's now your second best cornerback, which is amazing. Oh, and now you can have Kohu in the slot, just sticking there, just constantly playing in the slot. Perfect. He can learn, he can grow more. And he's got Nik Needham, who was, prior to this injury, a really damn good nickel cornerback for the Dolphins as well. So like I said, this unit goes from question mark to scary good with one acquisition, and that's Jalen Ramsey. So I love that. Like I said, we got to see how Needham bounces back. Still wouldn't be surprised to see the Dolphins target this position in rounds 2 or 3 of the draft. So keep your eye on that as well. Moving on to the rest of the defensive back safeties, a position that a lot of the fan base was like, we're good. We got Holland. We got Brandon Jones. What are we doing? We don't need to tinker with these other safeties. But Fangio, he likes particular safeties in this defense. And by signing Elliott, that, what? He's got a plan. He loves Holland. Brandon Jones just possesses a different skill set than what's typical of a Vic Fangio-led defense. So you enter Elliott, and now you've got that trio. You've got that trio of safeties that, Fangio can kind of get creative with these guys. He can play them based on an opponent, based on the scheme he wants to run, based on what down and distance it is. He really has a little bit more of a chess piece now. So I'm curious to see what he does with here. And Elliott wasn't my first choice at safety by any means. I was still a Jordan Poyer guy, and obviously he re-signed back with Buffalo. But if not Poyer, I'm cool with Elliott. On the deal that they got him on, another guy that had a little bit of injury history in the past with the last year. But like I said, I'm not going to get too caught up in that. We'll see how things go with the draft, the remainder of free agency. But this unit right now is another one with all the defensive backs, with all the cornerbacks they have. And now by having that trio of safeties, and McKinley's still there as well. So it's like a guy that was undrafted free agent last year that showed flashes that he can be a potential player in this mix as well. And I hate to do this. I tell you every time, I hate ending on like a downer on special teams. And special teams is important. Don't get me wrong. It's just not the sexy position that quarterback, running back, wide receiver, edge rusher is. So I'm not gonna kill your time on this. You lose Mostert, yet you add Bailey. It is what it is because I haven't done enough research on Jake Bailey yet to give you an educated thought. So I will leave it there for today. That's the free agent recap as of this minute. However, if things change, we'll continue to be addressing free agents as we go on here. And real quick, as I wrap up, I'm going to be starting doing the individual draft player profiles. I'll be pumping those out on the regular pretty damn quick here. So stay tuned for that. Get subscribed if you are not already. And go ahead in the comments. Any thoughts you've got so far on free agency, let's hear them. Drop them in the comments. And until next time, Dolphins fans, fins up.